For the most part, people on the right and left differ on religion. When any real political discussion occurs, the core of each argument comes back to religious belief and values. I'm sure we've all had this experience when discussing a political issue with friends, family, and even your university lecturer. The left overwhelmingly want government policies to be separate from religion, and the right seeks the opposite, with this being a key difference between both political groups. To understand this topic, we will look at the historical context of the right and the left, alongside their philosophical basis for their positions. This video is dedicated to understanding why the right loves religion and why the left hate it. Arguing that the right love religion and that the left hate it is a big stereotype, but the trend holds mostly true across the two groups. As we've said at the beginning of this video, every political discussion comes back to values. For many centuries, religion has been a significant way for societies to base their morality and cultural norms off. Religions have been able to entrench core principles about morality in sacred texts, and they have acted as the foundation for societies all over the world. Without going too far back into the history books, right-wing and left-wing thinking mainly came during the Age of Reason or the Age of Enlightenment. The treachery of religious war from the Siege of Constantinople between the Byzantine Empire and the Ottomans, and the 30 Years' War between the Protestants and the Catholics encouraged a lot of philosophers to rethink their beliefs about God and what they wanted from humanity. At its core, Christianity was not about tribalism, and the 15th and 16th centuries saw some of the most treacherous religious wars in human history. There was an estimate of 4.5 to 8 million soldiers and civilians that died from the 30 Years' War, which was about 1% of the world's population at the time, so the results were catastrophic. This encouraged Enlightenment thinkers to rethink religion and how it should be implemented in politics. The Enlightenment thinkers did not totally reject God and religion, and rather a lot of them thought that there was an order to the universe and that God was the designer of that order. However, they did think that secularism was necessary to prevent wide-scale conflict. Secularism, meaning the separation of church and state, meant that regardless of particular religious dispositions, human beings could agree on a set of rules and principles to lay the foundations for their society. These rules would apply to all human beings regardless of religion, race, or culture, and there was a shift from religion as a source of morality and instead being supplemented with reason. Liberals were also inspired by movements like the Protestant Reformation, which arose from questioning the corruption of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church were convincing their societies that if enough money was given to them, the souls of recently deceased people would travel into the afterlife and guaranteed a spot in heaven. In modern-day politics, liberals often refer to the evils of the Catholic Church as a basis for rejecting God and organised religion. Modern-day liberals are quick to condemn the Catholic Church now, like with the recent case of Cardinal Pell. A mixture between contemporary wrongs from religious organisations and their historical wrongs have spurred liberals to be sceptical and distasteful towards religion. However, there are many problems with this argument because religious institutions are not treated as individual people in an institution, but instead are thought of as other entities that are capable of producing evil. Along with the Age of Reason, the scientific revolution encouraged human beings to use reason and a physical understanding of the world to make moral decisions. Before this, human beings would rationalize their morality, but would also use religious texts as the foundation for their moral decisions. If there was a moral problem to deal with, people would cite biblical verses for their answers. On the other hand, liberals who have taken an Enlightenment-inspired philosophy argue that they are more supportive of LGBT rights, for they think that homosexuality is a natural phenomenon that is present in people's biology. It follows that this can be understood as a natural phenomenon, and discriminating against these people based on their sexuality is unfair and wrong. This is compared to conservatives who like to premise their morality in tradition and traditional religion, who would likely oppose such beliefs. A deep hatred for institutional religious power and its ability to exert dominance over its society is a major reason why the liberals and now the left are distasteful towards religion. This is accompanied by the economic power that large religious institutions have, which in the eyes of the left should be distributed to poorer people to raise standards of living. Modern-day liberals, or people on the left, take a similar approach to this, but now have taken this a step further with moral relativism and woke culture. When it comes to human suffering, depression and anxiety, generally speaking, liberals will focus on social pathologies like economic inequality, arguing that it is the primary cause for the suffering of individuals around the world. Liberals will look at dire situations like poverty in Africa and India and claim that social forces like capitalism and Western greed are responsible for that suffering. That being said, many African countries have the lowest depression and anxiety rates in the world. This strengthens the position of conservatives who think that human suffering and misery comes from our individual desires for materialistic goods that don't really mean too much. Generally speaking, right-wingers or conservatives are supportive of traditional religion and religious hierarchies. The right think that these institutions are a good way to uphold values to prevent a society from collapsing or falling apart. This is very different to liberalism, which asserts that people should be free and do what they want without others infringing on that freedom. Typically speaking, conservatives oppose abortion, LGBT behaviour, drug use, and sexual activity outside of marriage. These principles are mainly premised from a Judeo-Christian ethical teaching, and it remains the bedrock of morality for the right in Western countries. Social inequality is not an obligation of the state for conservatives, but rather an obligation of individuals to handle. In the eyes of the left, and even more hard left thinkers like Marx, a total economic restructure needs to happen through the state, who owns the means of production and distributes the goods. With respect to human suffering, conservatives tend to think that this is an internal struggle characterized by lack of faith and the lack of community that religion provides. Conservatives view man as a fallen creature who needs community, faith, and society to hold back demons. Conservatives and people on the right will often reference communism in the Soviet Union, arguing the abolition of religion was a key reason for its decline in morality and its willingness to kill millions of people. It's these types of catastrophes that encourages conservatives to stay very strong to their faith and become skeptical of liberals who would like to see a more secular society. While it's fair to say that most conservatives use faith as a guiding principle, most try to keep it out of political discourse, recognizing it is something intensely personal. Conservatives are willing to accept the laws of nature, but recognize the ability for evil to take control and destroy the individual's soul and society. In theory, the right prioritize the following principles: don't hurt others, people should reap what they sow, superiors shouldn't oppress their social inferiors, loyalty and certain things are sacred and not transgressible. Conservatives see liberals as woke and are struggling spiritually because they express their own suffering in the form of political protests. When it comes to some form of political discussion, you can see why there are often disagreements between left and right. Both sides think differently about the world and the way it should be, and religion makes clear what this should be. Disagreements on these ideals lead to clashes, political divide, and that's what we're seeing in the world today. I hope this video explains to you why the right love religion and why the left hate it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video for more content like this.